Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's program. I'm Kelly Wright. Glad you could join us as we spend this next hour together focusing on what's important to us in the nation. And of course, one of the most important things is how do we safely reopen the states as we continue to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic, which leads me to my opening observations. You see, here in the Washington, D.C. area, which includes Maryland and Virginia, we're still on a stay-at-home order right now. In fact, the former First Lady of the United States, Michelle Obama, has reached out to help residents here by doing a public service announcement for D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser. In that ad, Michelle Obama talks about residents staying at home, except to get essential health care, food, or supplies, or to go to an essential job. There's some other factors that we want to point out in my opening observations. This is Nurses Week, so all of us should take time out to thank nurses who have been on the front lines to battle this COVID-19 pandemic. Also, we should give a shout out to all the first responders, essential workers, and even including teachers who have to learn how to teach our students through distance learning now. It's a very difficult task at best, but it's something we all should be mindful of. And finally, as we continue to see the reopening of the states, let's use one thing that will safeguard us here, now, and in the future: common sense. And those are my opening observations. So again, welcome to the program tonight. My first guest is Ken Blackwell. He is the former Secretary of State for the state of Ohio, as well as the Treasury, head of the Treasury Department there for so many years. He's someone that people have learned to trust in terms of what's going on overall. And Ken, good of you to join the show today. As you know, we're going through these reopening of states, and there's still a lot of cause for concern because we don't know where this virus is going to take us. So I wanted to drill down on your perspective on these reopening of states, and how do we safeguard our communities at the same time of increasing our livelihoods, but making sure that we protect life?
Kelly, it's so good to be with you again. Look, we are starting to gradually reopen our country. We're starting to breathe life back into our economy. And when we shut down at the end of January, we had the most robust economy in the world, if not in all of human history. Unemployment was down, employment opportunities were plentiful. There was a real lift in income, and all of that stopped once we had to shut down as a consequence of the spread of COVID-19. We're now state by state, based on indicators in our respective states, starting to reopen the country. We're doing it gradually, but we have to do it smartly. We know that there are public health strategies that must be in place: social distancing, testing, and then we also have now narrowed, brought a focus to the most vulnerable groups of people in our society, the elderly, those with underlying conditions, and we must make sure that we pay special attention to them while we encourage healthy Americans to go back to work, drive our economy, and in fact, do it safely.
Ken, that is so important. And another part of the economy, as well as a part of the communities that we have to be concerned with, is what's happening in the Black and Brown communities, as you know. The president has talked about the disparities that have gone on in the African American community, as well as Dr. Anthony Fauci. And of course, these disparities have existed long before we got into the coronavirus, and we have to deal with them now, even as we reopen states. What are your concerns about what's going on in communities of color?
Well, that we understand why we are more vulnerable. There are more of us with underlying conditions that, in fact, make us more susceptible to COVID-19. So that means that we have to be disciplined in how we approach this. You know, we have to look at factors like the density of our housing, the intergenerational nature of those living within our housing or home units. And as a consequence, we have to make sure, again, that we pay special attention to the elderly. We pay special attention to those family members who might have asthma, might be in a situation where they're undergoing chemotherapy, which makes their immune system more vulnerable. We just have to be smart, and that means that as we target resources against the most vulnerable, that we make sure that our representatives, our political representatives and leaders, make the demand that that sort of attention from a resource standpoint be given to our community. And I think that there's a willingness and to listen and to be responsive in the federal government. That's both in Congress and in the White House, the president.
Ken Blackwell, former Secretary of State for Ohio and Treasurer of Ohio. So good of you to join us today. Thank you for weighing in on this and sharing your perspective.
God bless you, Kelly. All the best.
You too, sir. Back with more of the show after this. Welcome back to the program. So I was talking with Ken Blackwell about reopening of the states. He was talking about the fact that we have to do it responsibly. We're here to weigh in on the issue about how we do that responsibly as a doctor who can speak on good authority about getting it done. That's Dr. Yolanda Hancock. Good of you to join us again today, Doc. And you're seeing a lot of work going on out there. Before I get to the question about the reopening responsibly, I want to talk about this story that's been generating about the 15 kids who are in a New York hospital with a mysterious illness that's related to the coronavirus. Do you know more about that? Can you explain what's happening with our youth?
Sure. I laugh when I hear mysterious. We've known about Kawasaki's disease since the beginning of the naming of the disease. In residency, I took care of little ones who had Kawasaki's disease, so it's not as mysterious as the media or those across the world are making it seem. Is it rare? No. Does it happen often? No. But we have to make sure that we recognize what's going on with our little ones. So Kawasaki's disease is something called a vasculitis, an inflammation of the small blood vessels in the body, blood vessels like our coronary artery, which supplies blood to our heart muscles. That's the reason why Kawasaki's is so scary, is that when it is not treated appropriately, it can cause destruction to the heart because you affect the heart's ability to receive a blood supply. And what we're seeing now, and we're thinking that because of the inflammatory response from COVID-19, we're not sure if it's the virus itself or the inflammation that results from the virus that facilitates this irritation, this inflammation of our little one's small blood vessels.
The other factor that remains, however, is that states, as you know, have been reopening. And as I stated earlier, Ken Blackwell, the former Secretary of State for Ohio and former Treasurer of Ohio, says it has to be done responsibly. And is there a way to do it responsibly so that it mitigates the COVID-19? We're still supposed to be flattening the curve.
Right, absolutely. So I think it's important that there are actual specifics about how we go back to business as usual. Instead of having these benchmarks about hospital utilization and deaths and ICU admissions, we have to have those benchmarks to know when to consider reopening, but we also have to have an executable plan on how we reopen. That means, are there mandated policies that enforce the use and wearing of masks? Is there going to be not only the recommendation for, but the enforcement of social distancing? We're opening gyms, beauty salons, and restaurants without ensuring that there are at least 6 feet of separation in these spaces. We've talked about it before, the concern for the aerosolization of COVID-19. Has that been addressed in air conditioning systems across the states that are considering or have actually reopened? And clearly we see that there is no enforcement of any of this. When we look at beaches in Florida, we look at beauty salons with lines around the block in Georgia, no one is enforcing any of the recommendations that have been pushed out to keep us safe.
You're so right about that. Before we go, I really want to talk to you about that whole thing about mask wearing, because there are some people out there who are use myself for example. I posted a picture of me wearing a mask out taking a walk in a wooded area, and someone took to Facebook and basically said, you don't need to wear that. And I said, I'm following the good advice of some very good doctors who are tops in their field, and I will wear this mask. It's my right to take care of myself and take care of my family. But yet there are doctors out there, they went on to say, who are saying quite the contrary. And I know you've taken issue with some of those doctors who have come out saying, oh, it's overblown, it's really not that bad. But it really is that bad. I'd like you to address some of those doctors who have actually taken the different takes, saying it's not that bad, and yet there are doctors that you know and like yourself on the front lines.
Right. So the first thing I'd like to make sure that people pay attention to is the messenger, right? I know that there is a new viral video going out, a PhD doc who has already been questioned about the science that she pushed out in terms of some results that she reported in the research that she did. So that already puts an asterisk next to her expertise, right? The second is, does it make sense? If you're telling me that a mask traps carbon dioxide and facilitates you being sicker, then how would one actually have air exchange? In the same way that we can breathe in, we also breathe out. And the amount of O2 that is exchanged is good, right? Otherwise, healthcare providers across the country would have succumbed to their mask and not to COVID-19. So some of this stuff is just common sense. The third is that we want to err on the side of caution. Even for myself, if I go out for a walk, I will wear a mask and my child will wear a mask, because I don't know who was in my physical space before I stepped out my door. And I have to assume that everyone has COVID-19 until proven otherwise, given how endemic it is in the community and our lack of ability to do statewide testing in my area.
I appreciate you for coming on and being always forthright and to the point and transparent with the knowledge that we need. I chuckle because I'm just shaking my head at what some people are out here thinking, Doc. And
and it's scary because it's doctors.
Scary.
It's some doctors saying this, which makes it valid, and it seems like it's coming from experts. But I always tell folks to fully vet your source.
Absolutely. And if anyone vets you, they will see that the source knows exactly what she is talking about. Dr. Yolanda Hancock, thanks for being a part of the program. And hopefully we'll see you next week. Keep us up to date and informed about everything going on. We'll be back with more of the show after this. Welcome back to the program. I'm joined now by Lisa Davis, and she is a financial expert with a lot of insights as to how we can save and invest and continue on with our business practices for those of us who are trying to operate businesses because of an entrepreneurial spirit. But I wanted Lisa to tell you the name of her company and why. Lisa?
Hi, I'm Lisa Davis, and I am the Trusted Banker. And I started that name about 3 or 4 years ago when I left corporate America after 20 years of being a banker. And a lot of my peers and colleagues still reached out to me to help them with initiatives, programming in the community. We support low-income communities with economic development, affordable housing. And so at that time, it came to me that I was trusted by my peers. So I am the Trusted Banker. So I created the entity, the Trusted Banker in the business. And at that time, also on Facebook and Instagram, it kind of caught on with my family and friends and network, and it kind of grew from there. And I am the Trusted Banker. That's how that came about.
Well, that's fantastic. And if ever there is a time that we need a trusted banker, Lisa, it's now, because we were trusting the government to be able to provide us with the PPP as well as the Stimulus and CARES Act to help us reinvigorate our businesses that have been ailing due to the economic downturns because of COVID-19. And yet many people within the Black and brown communities are left without anything. What's your suggestion to to the people who are still seeking to operate their businesses and get back up on their feet financially?
Yeah, so great question. I've been working with small businesses to help them understand the dynamics of what's going on in the environment right now and helping them move their business online. They still have their physical locality, but because of sheltering in place, they've lost a lot of physical clients in person. And so I'm teaching them how to put their business online, how to think outside of the box, think differently, create maybe some pop-up opportunities, have some kits that people can pick up or come and pick up different opportunities, different services or products from their physical place. And then also create maybe a one-page website and still communicate with maybe some online things, some events, some tips, just things to stay engaged. It's important at this time while we're all at home to stay engaged with our customers and let them know that we really care, we're really concerned, and we have products and services that will help them. And if they can't get to us, we can bring it to them in their home.
Interesting that you can get it to them in their home. For those service businesses, service-oriented businesses within the African American community, for example, they might be a custodial service, or they might be a hair salon, or they might be a barber shop. How do they function in this new normal that's quite abnormal?
That is a great question, and it's funny that you're asking me that because I have clients. I actually have electricians and plumbers as well. And so some of the things that we're doing is teaching them how to go onto YouTube or how to create a webinar on Zoom or other platforms and teach people how to DIY, do it yourself in a way that's safe, especially for technical providers like electricians, plumbers, heating and cooling, because some people will always have a need for your knowledge, and knowledge is wealth. And so we're teaching them how to use their knowledge and monetize that so that they can keep engaged with their customers, teach them how to do some quick fixes until they are comfortable with bringing people back into their home or going into the salon. How do I manage my hair? How do I keep myself looking presentable until I can get back into the salon? So we're working with our entrepreneurs and our small businesses, keep them online in front of people and make sure that they're engaged with their clients and their clients are getting that information, which also builds that trust and builds that relationship even on a deeper level.
Lisa, I appreciate you coming on the show. You got to come back. I've got one weird thing that I've been thinking about for weeks now since the CARES Act and the stimulus packages. And it might sound wildly progressive, but I think the government would have been better off giving every American household anywhere from $100,000 to $500,000 to say, now you get this money on the condition that you go out and reinvigorate your own personal economy and build up your communities and the states and thereby the nation. Is that too far-fetched?
So I think it's well, I don't think it's far-fetched if we look at the money that we put into the federal government and how they can use it a little bit wiser. I did come up with about $8,000 per household. 100,000 I think would be great, especially if you have a small business and we make it economies in our communities. And that's another thing I think we need to talk to people about is understanding the local economies and how important it is and how much money is in that local economy when you can keep your dollar there for 28 days versus in some cases 6 hours. So I think that's a very good point, and I think that's something that should be discussed and explored further.
Hey, I'm just saying, as long as they're throwing out the money, give it to the American people and not do this fiddling around with people's pocketbooks and their wallets. Lisa Davis, the trusted banker, you got to come back because we really need a trusted banker this day and age. Thanks for being on the program.
Thank you for inviting me.
And we'll be back with more of the show right after this. Welcome back to the program. I'm so delighted anytime I have George and Tondra Gregory on the program, especially because of the topic we like to focus on, and that is strengthening the family. You know, that's very important in these tough times in which we find ourselves living. The economy, the fact that so many people have and been sick because of COVID-19 and other maladies that confront us. But George and Tondra, good of you to join us today. And as we journey for life, which is the name of your program. And as we continue to reach out to families across the spectrum, are you finding that some families are perhaps almost caving under the pressure of COVID-19 and the disruption it's caused? And how do you shore them up?
Yeah, well, yes, we find that to be very true, right? And as far as what we do at Journey for Life, we believe marriage is a journey, and it should be for life. And so for us, COVID-19 is a blip on the screen. It just is, it's revealing cracks, it's revealing things that we need to shore up. But most of the time when families or individuals, and let's face it, families are made up of business people. They're made up of teachers. They're made up of first responders. And so because we're dealing with COVID-19, families are being challenged. And yet this is the moment where we rally together, right? We rally together. We get a game plan. We talk about what our fears are. We don't shrink back. We just talk about those things that we're dealing with. And a good question maybe for spouses or for the entire family right now is, how could I be there for you during this season? What do I need to do? Because there's probably a lot of fears. What we're discovering is that people have a lot of fears. Spouses or one significant other might have more fears than the other. But if you're not asking those questions of how could I be there for you, or what do you fear most, maybe they're going to go on and not tell you, but they're actually dealing with those things, and you might be getting a reaction from them that you might not otherwise.
But admittedly, guys, there is a strain, there is a burden, and it's just a matter of finding out ways to maneuver through that, like praying together. And what do you suggest for having fun together as a family?
Yeah, well, I suggest, like, you have to compartmentalize your week, right? Like, because you have all these new responsibilities, new burdens put on you, new schedules, very demanding schedules put on you. So carving out that time and being very intentional that you don't let your personal marriage or relationship become unnurtured and not attended to, right? Because we tend to put our marriage on the back burner when other things take priority over our relationship.
Okay, Tondra, you're stepping on some toes now.
Hey, she does a really good job at that sometimes.
So I'm just saying, it's not going to be haphazard. It's always going to be something that is going to take priority over your marriage. So I think just being dogged about that time. George and I, we always had a little time that we would always set aside when our kids were smaller, because that's when you have high stress levels when you have young kids, right? And you're both working. So a few days a week, we would carve out what we call pillow talk, right? Where we would put the kids to bed early. We would get in the bed early before we're too exhausted. And we would just catch up about each other's day, and just little things like that. It doesn't take forever. It's just like, it could be like 15 minutes, 10 minutes. Yeah. It's just intentionality.
Yeah, that keyword time, that 4-letter word, time equals love, right? And there's no way you can say you love someone without spending that quality time. And so we're oversaturated with things to do in our culture. And COVID-19 has almost slowed that down, that we can't do but so much. And so we're forced to spend quality time. So something happened here in Orange County the other night. We had a blackout in certain parts of our city that we're in. And so my daughter, she says, oh no, we're in COVID-19 and now we don't have any power. And she started thinking about all the things that she now couldn't do even more so. No Wi-Fi, no computer, none of those things. And so what we did was we simply got our flashlights out and we looked through old pictures of my high school when we were first married. And it took us down all these memories. I showed her an old report card, and she was laughing at the way we used to do things. And so
and how hard we've been on her, and looking at his grades. She's like, oh my God.
Come on. I'm a product of grades. Yeah. So what we learn to do, Kelly, is we learn to respond through any situation. Families are resilient.
Yes.
Why? It's because we have a DNA that wasn't placed in us by timid times. We have the author and the finisher of our faith says that we can get through anything. With man, it's impossible, but with God, all things are possible. And that's what we like to say, is that whatever you feel, whatever you're going through, take a different perspective. Don't get so close to it. Learn to laugh, learn to adjust, learn your new normal, because we are walking in abnormal times.
So I'm talking to George and Tondra Gregory, and we'll be back with more of them and some insights about what to do for Mother's Day after the break. Before we go, what is on the agenda for Mother's Day? What should we be thinking about? Men, listen up.
Well, first of all, you better make sure you do something special for that day, right? And it doesn't have to be sort of expensive or even like something new, but you can really make sure you acknowledge. And so there are moments that we realize that I can't travel across country to see my mother, or I can't fly her here. So what we have done as a family, by the way, Kelly, my father passed away a couple of months ago, and he was the patriarch of our family, the Rock. And so my mother, she's having a difficult time. And so for the last 4 weeks on Saturdays around 5 p.m. Eastern, we get on a Zoom call like this, and it's like 20 squares. And my 70-year-old mother, she's looking at these squares on Zoom, and she's trying to figure out, how am I able to talk to everyone? So this Saturday, we're having a Mother's Day celebration for her, where we're going to all get on a Zoom call, and we're going to all we didn't buy cards, but we're going to tell her we love her. We're going to tell her she's adored. We're going to tell her that. Why? It's because she's missing my father. And this is going to be her first Mother's Day without our father, but we're going to make it special for her.
Yeah, I agree. Mothers, they are the heartbeat of the family, right? And, moms won't ask for anything. They do everything that they do out of just pure love without ever expecting anything in return. And I do think it's important for us to honor that role in our lives. I mean, I've seen shows where criminals of the roughest criminals, but hi, Mom, So mothers do play a special role in our lives, and we don't need to minimize that, and just be intentional too about making sure we honor moms. And I do like the fact that we are able to get on that Zoom call, because moms really just want to spend time with their kids. And so catching up and making sure everybody stops to just be like, no real agenda, but just connection, really.
Yeah, I think it's really prioritization, right? Whatever you do, just make sure you're spending some time and you're honoring. It could be, for some of us, maybe we have a strained relationship with our mom. Maybe this is your moment to make a call and to get it right. My dad, we knew he was going to pass away because he was battling ALS, but I was able to say to my dad everything I wanted to say to him before he passed. And so for some of us, we're letting time slip by. Maybe this is your weekend to call your mother and connect with her and let her know, I'm sorry, there's been some space, there's been some distance, there's been some hurts, but we won't let hurts or distance or space get in between us, and say those words, I love you, and I'm going to do a better job. Another way you can maybe even talk to your mom is just to ask her, hey, how could I, like the same question I asked earlier, is how could I be there for you? What ways as a son or as a daughter have I not been there that you would say is an easy cheat sheet for me to learn? How could I be there for you in the future?
And lastly, I'll just say this really quick. I remember my one Mother's Day, most recently, my son, we have an adult son who's out of the house. He's a 23-year-old, finally, taking care of his own bills and stuff. But anyway.
And he's single, for all your single listeners
and
out
he's
there.
A young, single, handsome man. He's going to kill me for that. But he sent me a video of him just honoring me and sharing with me all the lessons that he learned from me as his mom. And I didn't realize how much I needed to hear that, but I literally wept. Like I just literally cried, because that's all a mom really wants, right? That she's made an impact in her kids. And so you may think that, oh, I can't buy my mom a new car or whatever. It's just those little things that say, you special, you matter, and you have made an impact in my life. And I'm not gonna, I'm thankful for that.
Fantastic. Both of you. Always good to have you on. Talk about strengthening the family. And of course, you can't go wrong making sure you reach out and touch mom, even through social media. George and Tandra, appreciate you so much. And the one thing that kept coming up today that I think the most important word is to be intentional. So George and Tandra, thank you for making us think about the intentionality of making sure that we're intentional about strengthening the bonds in our family. And that's why we do this. We want to strengthen the family because the family should not be weakened in a COVID-19 pandemic, nor should the family ever be weakened with what we go through anyway as a people. So I appreciate you so much. Keep on keeping on the good fight as your journey for life. And we'll see you on Friday.
Yes,
That's
Friday.
right.
See you
All right.
Friday.
Love and blessings to you both. And we'll be back with more of the show after this. Welcome back to the program. As you know, I like to talk about strengthening the family. And every night I am dedicated to doing just that with guests who can really give us a lot of advice and insights into how we can make our family strong. So Nikessa Craig joins me once again. Nikessa, good to see you. You're part of Whole Journey, and it is a whole journey to keep our families together during this difficult time of the COVID-19 pandemic. First, off the top of your head, what do families need when they're faced with the impact of losing their jobs and not knowing what's next?
Thank you for having me, first off. I'll say that the first thing I would really consider is creating a plan of action. So everyone responds better when we can see a light at the end of the tunnel, when we can see direction. And so if I was a parent getting that information that today is your last day, next week is the last day that you'll be with us, I would take a look at getting a plan and then focus on how to communicate that plan.
And Nikessa, that's great. If I'm the parent of young children, or for that matter, teenage children, and we're going through a crisis like this, and I've lost that job, and I don't know where my next paycheck is going to come from. I'm still waiting for the government. How do I have a family time to sit down and honestly explain to my children what's happening, to give them the plan too, so that they know what we're going through?
That's a really great question. So I think it's important to take a beat and actually collect yourself, because a lot of times our fears start to swirl, and it's really important before you go into the family meeting to just really collect yourself. There are options out there. There are resources out there. And so you may want to sit down, actually address your own emotions, be okay with those emotions, realizing that they'll pass, and then get to the action steps, whether that's filing for unemployment, whether that's making phone calls to your landlord, your banking agency. There are things that you actually can do that may not feel like it's the best choice, but it's the choice that you have in the moment. And so I would focus on finding a time when I'm not extremely overwhelmed, when I can gather the courage to say, this is what needs to be done, I'm going to do this, and to start making those calls and organizing priorities.
How do you shake off the morning of actually losing your job, or for that matter, worse, a loved one due to the COVID-19?
That is very difficult. And what I say is that we all cope in different ways. So that can strike you in a cumulative effect, right? Where you were already dealing with stress, and now we have the additional pressure of grief or the financial uncertainty. The first step, though, is to look inward, to really actually address the emotions. Because what we tend to do is we tend to distract ourselves, we tend to get busy, and what happens is, as a result, those unresolved emotions, those unresolved things do start to surface. It was a good point you made in opening up about taking it out on our children, taking it out on people that we care about. So you want to address your own feelings and emotions. What that might look like is you taking some time for privacy. Maybe that's you going for a walk in the morning, Maybe that's you spending time in some prayer, meditation. Use the resources that make you feel supported and strong. And if you don't have those, be open and willing to explore those.
Nikessa, that's great. Nikessa Craig, you're a licensed clinical social worker, founder of Whole Life, and all that you're doing in terms of helping people is so good. And that's how we can keep our families strong, by listening to good advice and insights and information from people like yourself who are out there on the front lines in terms of helping people. How can we get in touch with you if people are out there saying, you know what, I like what she's saying. I need to learn more and study more about how I can be a better me so I can be a better person in this difficult time?
Well, you can definitely reach us on our website at wholejourneywellness.com. We're also on Instagram at Whole Journey Counseling. And what I will say is that the reason that we're called Whole Journey is because you don't really want to focus on certain outcomes. You don't want to wait to have fulfillment and life satisfaction. You want to take the moments that you have. And I think that's one of the lessons that's coming out of the pandemic. What really matters, and that's what's present. A lot of times we felt like mental health, emotional health, and spirituality could not all come together because of myths and misinformation. But the more that we combine those, the more that we make that a way of life and factor that into our lifestyles, our budgets, our passions, and things like that, the healthier we'll be as people, as family members, our children, and then in our communities. So it's really important. If you need that support, let us know, and we'll route you in the right direction.
That's fantastic. Nikessa Craig, thank you. See you Thursday?
Thank you, absolutely.
All right, God bless. And we'll be back with more of the show after this. Welcome back to the program. So my next guest is known as the undiscovered artist, but more importantly, he's a father. He's a dad. He's an African-American father. And I've been stating on this show for a long time now that the coronavirus would adversely impact Black Americans, not just myself, but all the guests we've had on, doctors and people who have been able to study this. And because of our health disparities, we have seen that we're adversely impacted. So the undiscovered artist wrote a song about a situation that he went through personally, because you see, his son almost died from it, and he's here to share it. I don't want to take the rest of your story, Mr. Irvin Lee, but you are known as the undiscovered artist. You wrote a song about coronavirus based on your personal experience with your own son. Please explain.
Yeah, well, my son, like I said, started having the symptoms, which is very concerning, and so as a parent, so we sent him. I mean, it got to a point where, we postponed it, like most people, we postponed it for a while, waiting to see, and finally we concluded, okay, it's time to go to the doctor, and so when you go to the doctor, you expect, you already know from what's happening right now in the media, you have to be at a certain state of symptoms, before they take you seriously. So, but you don't want to wait too late. So anyway, so he goes, and when, and he's gone all day pretty much, but when he comes back, he's saying, they said he's okay, and he didn't qualify for a test because he was sick, but not sick enough. Right. So now when he comes back, I'm saying to myself the same thing that all families say when somebody returns. Okay, so do you have it or do you not? Are you affected? Are you infecting us? You know what I'm saying? It's just a whole mind thing you go through, and really he received no help because basically, he was sent back home. So like I said, was saying, hey, I guess if you get worse or, symptoms get more complicated, come back. Right. And we've already, and of course, people have already seen the media where that happens, and people who went to the hospital, turned down. Then you hear the sad stories of, didn't make it back, died, a couple of days later. So anyway, so all those things run through your mind. So I decided, to me, music is one of the most powerful media. So I decided to, write a song, because I was just so, touched by it and upset.
Well, I think the song speaks volumes to what we're all experiencing, and more importantly, it's good to hear it, hear that your son is well, that he's recovered, and basically back in the game called life. And but yet your song is one that makes us think, and it echoes our sentiments, our feelings, and hopefully people are listening, because we do need more testing in communities of color. There's just simply not enough testing to go around. So
yeah, absolutely, yes, we have, and that's odd. As you bring it up, we still don't have testing. I mean, we're still playing this. Like I said, we're still, it's the Black community, the brown community. We're still, we still don't have what we need. We still don't. We're still not. We're still, being treated, like outcasts in a situation. And so, like I said, I mean, I guess, when you're Black, you're not used to, it's not something, I mean, something you get used to. But I'm just saying, sometimes you feel like it's like, here we go again. You know what I'm saying? Because this is a serious, an element, and we already, in the Black community already has a lot of, problems because we can't get the help, for the health care that we need. We have so many issues already. And this, like I said, it's just very, like I said, I hate to talk about it too much because it just, I hate to see, because, I hate to see another, tragedy so like this, Blacks be taken advantage of because we just don't have what we need, to get the help that we need and the service that we need, and so, like I said, so anyway, so that's what the song is about. The song is about hopefully to help everybody, and even the Black community, get a little more serious about this. This is really serious.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah. Well said, and definitely understand exactly where you're coming from, because we cannot afford to take this lightly, because life is short in and of itself. But this is a pandemic that we have to deal with. So we will play your song again at the end of the program, but we thank you for sharing it with us and actually bringing it to our attention. Irvin Lee, the undiscovered artist, and we'll continue to follow that. Stay in touch with us, please.
All right, I will. And let's let everybody know to go to coronavirussong.com, check out the video and check out the song. And I truly appreciate you taking time to talk to me.
Absolutely. God bless you. Take care.
Thank you.
Back with more of the Kelly Wright Show after this. Welcome back, and now for my final word. And my final word focuses on one thing. Let's continue to use common sense, and let's continue to promote getting sound testing out there in our urban communities. In addition to that, let's continue to take care of each other. As always, in watching this show, we hope that you've been righted, ignited, and united to keep spreading not fear, but to keep dropping knowledge and care on each other by sharing love, freedom, and peace. We'll leave you now with the undiscovered talent, Irvin Lee, and talking about coronavirus.
I was in the store just the other day. I was trying my best to keep 6 feet away. I could see the fear that was in their eyes from the people in masks who were passing by. I'm washing my hands every night and day. Can somebody tell me I'm gonna be okay? I'm down on my knees, that's all I can say. What time is it now? It's time to pray.